She was barely a week old, a tiny spark of life in a world too large, too cold, yet meant to protect her. Every breath she took was a fragile victory, every heartbeat a defiance against the odds. Doctors called it critical. Her parents, wealthy, powerful, untouchable in every realm, felt powerless in the face of something they could not control, the frailty of their own child. The billionaire father, a man whose decisions moved markets and shaped industries, now found himself frozen at the edge of a hospital crib. He had spent his life solving problems, bending the world to his will. But here, nothing he could summon mattered. Not money, not influence, not the best surgeons or the most advanced technology. Inside the sterile, humming ICU, monitors beeped a rhythm both relentless and unforgiving. The baby's tiny body shivered under the bright lights. Surgeons worked with precision, their hands steady, their faces masks of calm, yet even they knew their usual expertise was faltering. The equations, the charts, the protocols, all the tools of certainty had failed. The mother, pale and silent, clutched the infant's hand as though sheer will could keep her alive. Outside, the city moved in oblivious rhythm. The honking of taxis, the chatter of crowded streets, the indifferent pulse of life that never stopped. But inside this room, time had warped. The world had narrowed to a single fragile heartbeat that might be snuffed out at any moment. In that heartbeat, in that tiny chest, lay the unimaginable truth. Sometimes, the most precious lives depend on the most unexpected heroes. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. The baby's tiny body fought bravely, yet each breath became a battle, each heartbeat a whispered plea for mercy. The hospital staff worked tirelessly, yet the charts remained grim, and the machines offered no promise, only numbers that fell like silent warnings. The billionaire father, usually composed, found himself wandering the corridors, a man trapped between desperation and disbelief. Wealth had bought him influence, luxury, and power, but it could not buy survival. Not here, not now. He watched the surgeons, watched the monitors, and felt the weight of every second slip away. Everywhere around him, life went on. The city's hum contrasted sharply with the quiet intensity of the hospital room. It was a world of extremes, opulence and struggle, certainty and chaos. Outside, people faced their own battles, unknown and unseen. Somewhere in that vast city, perhaps even in a shadowed alley or a forgotten corner, existed a life untouched by privilege, someone who understood struggle in ways the billionaire never could. And yet, it was precisely in that contrast, between desperation and survival, between power and vulnerability, that fate was beginning to stir. The answer, the miracle, the impossible twist of fortune, would not come from wealth, from expertise, or from technology. It would come from somewhere else entirely, from someone the world had overlooked, someone whose existence had been invisible to everyone except the universe itself. The stage was set. A life hung in the balance, and the city held its secret. Amid the city's endless streets and shadowed corners, he wandered, a boy who knew hunger, cold, and invisibility as constants in his life. He had no name in the newspapers, no fortune to protect, no family to shelter him. Yet in his eyes was a quiet courage, a stubborn spark that refused to be extinguished, no matter how hard the world pressed down. By chance or fate, his path led him to the hospital that night. The bright lights, the polished floors, the hurried footsteps of doctors. It was all foreign, alien even. Yet somehow, he was drawn to the room where life itself seemed to teeter on the edge. He paused at the doorway, unnoticed, but attentive. He watched. He waited. And this is where the story turns, and where we need you, the viewer, to pause and consider. How often do we overlook the unseen heroes in our own world? How many lives might be quietly waiting for a hand that never seems to come? If you've ever believed that one person, no matter how small or invisible, can change everything, then keep watching, because what happens next defies everything the doctors thought they knew. The boy stepped closer, sensing something beyond fear, beyond desperation. He approached with a calm that was foreign to the room, a presence that seemed to push back the shadows. In his hands, or in his very being, lay a hope the billion-dollar machines had failed to provide. The tension hung in the air. Could this boy, this figure from the margins of society, be the answer? Could he do what the world's most celebrated surgeons could not? Every heartbeat in that room seemed to wait for his next move, for a miracle that no one expected to arrive from outside the walls of privilege. The room was tense, every second stretching into eternity. Machines hummed, monitors blinked, and the surgeons exchanged glances that carried unspoken worry. The billionaire father gripped the edge of the crib, desperation etched deep into his face. He had tried everything, every protocol, every method, but nothing had worked. And then the boy stepped forward. No introductions, no explanations, only a quiet confidence that demanded attention. The air seemed to shift around him, as if the room itself recognized the unexpected presence of someone extraordinary. He knelt beside the baby, his hands gentle but purposeful, his gaze steady and calm. He did something no one could have anticipated. No one in the room understood why or how he knew what to do. The surgeons paused, unsure whether to intervene or step back. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell, shallow and fragile, but after the boy's touch, a subtle change began. A rhythm, a spark of life that had been slipping away, seemed to strengthen. Time slowed. Every eye in the room was fixed on the crib. The baby's breathing became less erratic, more deliberate, more alive. The monitors, once grim and unyielding, started to show a steadying pattern. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. Hope, long thought lost, had returned. The billionaire father watched in disbelief. Years of control, of knowledge, of power had failed him. And yet here, in the presence of a boy from the streets, life had found a way. The room remained still, charged with the quiet miracle unfolding. In that moment, everyone realized that the world often reserves its most astonishing gifts for the places we least expect, where courage, kindness, and instinct replace wealth, fame, and training. And as the boy stepped back, almost disappearing into the shadows, it became clear. Some heroes are invisible until the exact moment the world needs them most. The room was silent, save for the steady, now reassuring beeps of the monitors. Relief washed over the surgeons and nurses, a mixture of awe and disbelief. The crisis that had seemed insurmountable had eased in a way that no one could explain, and yet the proof was undeniable. The baby was alive. The billionaire father sank into a chair, his hands trembling, his mind racing. He had faced countless challenges in business, battles of power and influence, but nothing had prepared him for this. In all his wealth, all his resources, he had been powerless. And yet, life had returned through the hands of a boy whose world had nothing to offer but courage and intuition. The mother, exhausted and shaken, held her child closer than ever, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Gratitude mingled with wonder, a recognition that the world had just shown them a truth money could never buy. Life is fragile, and miracles are often found in the unlikeliest of places. And then came the question that hung heavy in the air. Who was this boy? Where had he come from? And how could someone so invisible to society hold such power over life itself? The answers were not immediate, and perhaps they would never fully understand. But one thing was certain, his presence had changed everything. Outside the hospital, the city continued its ceaseless rhythm, unaware that within these walls, a small life had been saved, and a father's world had been irrevocably altered. The billionaire's mind lingered on the boy's face, on the quiet strength that had entered the room and altered the course of destiny. He realized, in that moment, that true wealth is measured not in dollars, but in the unexpected gifts life offers, and in the humility to recognize them. Days passed, but the image of the boy lingered in the billionaire father's mind, an unshakable reminder that life's most profound lessons often come from the most unexpected sources. He asked the hospital staff, traced the city streets, and even consulted with social services, but it was as if the boy had vanished into thin air. He was a ghost in the city's chaos, a figure unnoticed by millions, yet forever etched into the life of one family. And as the search continued, the billionaire began to understand something he had never fully grasped. Influence and money could move the world, but they could not by the essence of courage, empathy, or selfless action. This is the moment for you, the viewer, to reflect. How often do we overlook the people around us who could change lives in ways we cannot imagine? How many invisible heroes pass through our own worlds, waiting for recognition, waiting for the chance to make a difference? If you believe that courage can come from anyone, anywhere, and that a single act can change everything, then you know the significance of what is about to unfold. The search was no longer just about gratitude. It was about connection, about acknowledging the value of every life, no matter how unseen or marginalized. And somewhere, out in the city's endless streets, the boy continued his life, unaware of the profound impact he had made, yet moving forward with the quiet resilience that had saved a life. The question remained, would their worlds ever truly intersect again? And when they did, how would that encounter change them both? Weeks later, fate intervened once more. The boy, the invisible hero who had vanished like a shadow, was finally found, not through money, influence, or force, but through persistence, humility, and a father's newfound understanding of what truly matters. The reunion was quiet yet electric, a meeting that transcended wealth and status. The billionaire knelt to meet the boy's eyes, a gesture of respect and gratitude that no contract or donation could ever express. The mother stood beside him, holding her now healthy child, tears streaming freely, a mixture of relief, awe, and the unspoken acknowledgement of the miracle that had occurred. No riches could equate to this moment. No titles, no accolades, no empire could compare to the lesson the boy had taught them. That courage, compassion, and selflessness exist in the hearts of those we least expect, and that sometimes salvation comes from the margins of society rather than the heights of privilege. The boy, who had known hardship and invisibility, smiled faintly, unaware of the full extent of the transformation he had inspired. His act of quiet heroism had rippled outward, changing lives, teaching humility, and reminding a powerful family, and the world, that true impact is measured not by wealth, but by the courage to act when it matters most. And as the city outside continued its relentless rhythm, one truth lingered. Miracles are often found in the unlikeliest places, and heroes can appear in the most unexpected forms. Life had revealed its most profound secret. Sometimes, those who have nothing to give can give everything that truly matters. The billionaire family returned home, forever changed, carrying with them a newfound understanding of gratitude, humility, and the quiet power of human connection. And somewhere in the city streets, the boy moved forward, still invisible to most, yet forever monumental in the life he had saved.